Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Passing Time with Craig. As always, I'm your host, Craig McFarlane, and here we are, day 5 of our Jurassic series week, where we've been talking about the Jurassic Park franchise the entire week. And we are down to the final film, and we got a lot to talk about because we've got some additional things to talk about in it. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the 5th film in the franchise from 2018. Just 2 years old at this point. And once again, I am joined by the very talented filmmaker and friend of mine, Matt Watterworth. Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
I'm good. I feel like I get more talented every episode. It's very nice of you.
I try. Well, I thank you for coming back and, putting up with me talking about these
No, are you
movies
kidding? I've
in
learned so
depth.
much. It's been so fun.
Well, let's see what we're going to learn tonight. Okay, so here we go. This movie was more so than any other film in the franchise, the biggest game changer. Because here we went and I don't even think it's halfway through the movie. We're going to say goodbye to the island and the
Yeah, that
dinos are here.
shocking. But what makes you say that? What makes you say that this is a game changer of a movie?
It's because there's a couple elements. There's getting rid of the island. It's releasing the dinosaurs into the wild,
Yeah.
although just in California. Let's clarify that. um, but then there's also showing the really showcasing that in these series, humans are the bad people, and
Mm,
they're the ones that are going to cause some. We've got some bad people that we'll talk about later on that are bidding on these dinosaurs and the creations of them, and the DNA and everything that goes with it. So,
right. That
um,
was something I didn't notice this time around. That Dr. Wu was nervous about the bidders taking the DNA, maybe making their own dinosaurs. I hadn't thought of that.
yeah. So here we go. Colin Trevorrow, who directed Jurassic World, did work on the script on this one. Did a lot of he kind of became the Spielberg, or I guess a George Lucas type person would be a great explanation, because he's overseeing this trilogy is what we're seeing now.
Right.
But directing duties were taken over by J.A. Bayona, who at that point, there's really two movies that people would know him from. Is A Monster's Call, which with Zoe Saldana. Not a huge film, but lots of CGI stuff going on in it. Big imagination, crazy world. And then, of course, he did The Impossible with Ewan McGregor. And it's such a great film. I love The Impossible.
Yeah, I don't know his work. I don't think I've seen any work that he's done. But for some reason, I got the vibe that he's like more of an effects person. But his he doesn't have. He's not like you see that in some cases, like with oh, I'm trying to think of the wonderful director who did District 9.
Oh, yeah.
And he was much more a VFX artist and creator in that vein, who then moved over to directing. But yeah, there's nothing in J.A. Bayona's resume that suggests that he did that. Although it does look like he likes to do effects heavy films.
Yes, yeah. And I will say one of my favorite parts of this one compared to Jurassic World is there's a lot more animatronics in play here. You see that with Blue when she's on the gurney. That's a T-Rex head in the back of the truck. The Indoraptor for several shots is clearly really there.
Yeah,
So they did a lot more, which I really appreciated.
yeah. But when you say game changer, what I thought you were going to go to about this film is that it finally tackles human cloning.
Yes, that's true.
I would have thought they would have gotten to this much sooner than the fifth movie in the franchise.
So when that came about, okay, won't lie, watching in theaters opening night,
Yeah.
and our little girl Maisie, she opens up the book that her grandfather would never let her look at, and she sees this photo of her nanny, and her, but I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was happening.
Right.
And then it took later on, there's mention of it, and I went, what? Wait, we've cloned a human?
Right.
And then I thought, well, that does make sense, I guess, in this franchise.
I think it totally does. Although I'm surprised that maybe I missed it, but Henry Wu doesn't really talk about that. Maybe he wasn't the one behind it. But yeah, I mean, I would have thought that sort of at least by the third one they would have been going into human cloning. But I actually I'm sort of impressed that with the way that it was done and handled. I thought it was pretty intelligent.
I did too. I like that it was, um, you know, it was Benjamin Lockwood's daughter, and he lost her, and it was tragic, and so he wanted her back again. And I just thought it was really well done, and I like that it was a real human piece as opposed to something out of like Star Wars where we're cloning into
Right.
stormtroopers, right? Like
Yeah.
we're
True.
cloning some badass guy to make
Right.
to fight.
Yeah,
So
that would have
like,
been heavy-handed and weird. But this was
yeah,
like, oh, he did it for sort of personal reasons, personal loss, trying to do what any of us, I think, who sort of are imaginative when you lose a pet or from a pet to a loved one. I certainly can't help but think, is there any way to undo this? Is there any possible way? And of course, there is in the world of this film.
yeah. So this film, so we have Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt returning, and Bryce Dallas Howard has had a major character change off screen.
Yeah.
She's now, we talked about the pitch meetings on this series before, and I had to
Yes.
rewatch this one, and
Yeah.
sure enough, it was like, so she went from totally exploiting these dinosaurs to make money, to being like, I need to protect them.
Right.
But so yeah, it kind of sucks that we just had to roll with it right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would have been, it almost did make sense to kind of have a new character, but we need to have these connections.
I was going to say you could have actually cast someone else in this role and maybe not have lost too much, except of course for the existing relationship with Owen. But I feel like Bryce Dallas Howard is having more fun with this character and puts in a better performance in this film overall, which is good.
Yeah, no, I think she does a fantastic job in this film. She really portrays everything that's needed, and you definitely kind of care for her more as opposed to the first film. It was like, well, just, her and Chris are our main characters, so we don't want anything to happen.
Right. I'm buying her fear more. I'm buying her, her whole. I don't know. I wish I agree that we're sort of missing like the turn. Where did this happen in this character's life? But yeah, I mean, I think it's much better. Much better role for her. Or she's just bringing more to the table this time around. Either way, it's definitely in the plus column. And this film has sort of a mixed bag of plus and minuses, I think. And Rafe Spall, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, I believe so. I was practicing that too. And I went on his IMDb because I'm like, I don't recognize him from anything. I'm just like, oh, I just have seen this movie several times that I recognize him.
Okay, so fill me in on who, I can't even find his name. Who's he working for? The guy in the wheelchair?
Okay, so he's working for the very talented actor James Cromwell,
The incredible James Cromwell. Yes, thank you.
who's playing Benjamin Lockwood.
Another Star Trek alum.
All right, for those of you keeping score at home, drink because we had a Star Trek reference by Matt.
I think there might be another one actually.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, Sir Richard Attenborough is no longer with us. So they got a wonderful, talented person to play his former partner that was never really mentioned before, but you know what? It worked, and
I'm okay with it. Yeah,
I think it's fantastic. And he has Hammond's cane. I don't know if it's the exact same one. it was given to him.
But it's a very nice connection. Like, clearly this would have been Hammond if the character was around, if the actor was still around. But what I wanted to bring up about Rafe is, so yeah, he's working for Benjamin Lockwood. He plays Eli Mills, I see here.
Yeah.
And he does a fantastic job. I actually think when we're talking about sort of plus and minuses, I think he's really well cast, and he does a really great job. I don't know that he's given great material sort of in the back half of the movie, but I think his performance is really strong. The way he sort of charms Claire into like working for him is just brilliant. Where he's like, "Oh, you probably don't remember me. I'm just like a blip on your radar," and she's like, "No, I do." It was like, and then we sort of discover that he's actually a really bad guy. He did a great job of that. I was totally bought in.
It was great, and it's like the little changes. Like when he snaps at Maisie, when he's on the phone, so you've seen, okay, this guy's not there. The one part that I didn't enjoy his character trait is like he almost has this like Clark Kent Superman alter ego, like take it on his glasses, right. Like good versus evil, and I'm just like, oh, it's a little too cartoony for me.
Right.
But he does a great job. He was a great addition. And I think when it comes to a human antagonist in the entire series, he's probably one of our, if not our best one, not including Wu, because we'll touch on Henry Wu, but yeah.
Yes. So little Jeff Goldblum. I remember hearing that Goldblum would be coming back. Why didn't we get more Jeff Goldblum?
Here's the negative when it comes to this movie. And it's not just this movie. This is a Hollywood trait. And the fact of the matter is, we saw almost all of Ian Malcolm's scene in the trailer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then he's in the beginning at the end, but he basically says the exact same thing, but adds in a couple extra lines at the end of the movie to the welcome to Jurassic World part. And so it's just so frustrating. I would rather you try and surprise us, or just don't even bother.
Yeah. I mean, it at least to its credit, it made sense that, okay, he would be someone that Congress or whomever is sort of making these decisions would ask to sort of come and testify and give his opinion. And his opinion is not positive about saving the dinosaurs, which I guess also makes sense. Just wanted more Jeff Goldblum. I guess the way they did it made sense, and his star is rising again in a massive way, and so obviously they're cashing in on that a little bit. I'm just a little surprised he took the role or agreed to appear when it's just sort of, you could pull it out of the movie and it wouldn't really change anything. It was nice. It's nice atmosphere, and it's nice to hear from him. But yeah, it was too bad that it wasn't a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, because it'll be interesting to see what he's like in the new movie then, because it's been confirmed, as we've mentioned on this podcast, is that he's returning along with the others. So it'll be interesting to see if he's very still anti keeping these dinosaurs. And I mean, this leads into one of the things I love about this movie so much is it comes up with such a great point, is what rights do these dinosaurs have?
Right. Yeah.
We created them.
It is. It's a smart conflict. Do we have the responsibility to rescue them from the situation, given that they're only here because of humanity in the first place?
And so many of them are so dangerous and big. It's it's slightly different. Like tigers and lions are beautiful creatures, but they're very dangerous. But at the same time, a tiger might go on a rampage. A T-Rex going on a rampage is destroying the whole neighborhood as it goes.
Right.
Kills a lot of people. Right. So it's very interesting point. And so I really like the discussion that it comes up with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we should dive into that more. But I want to talk about one of my all-time favorite character actors who gets an appearance in this film. His name is Toby Jones.
Yes.
And he plays our auctioneer character. And he's been in so many movies, from he's in Captain America multiple times in different ways. He's in the Hunger Games and Harry Potter, but he is especially good. He's a great like serious actor, as he is in this film, but he's also a hilarious and brilliant comedic actor. And I'm apparently the only one who loves this movie, but there's a film called Your Highness,
Okay.
which he is
I,
in,
I
and
didn't
he's
even
brilliant
bother
in it.
seeing it, but
Oh my
okay.
god, it's so underrated. I mean, I don't know. Half the audience just went, "Whoa, he liked that movie? What's wrong with this guy?" I think
Yeah.
it's brilliant. I'm sorry, I'll debate anyone about it. And he is, and Toby is so funny in it. And so, anyways, to his credit, that he's so interchangeable. I think he played like Hitchcock. Like he's had an incredible career.
Yeah, he's done a lot of good stuff. And one of those people that again you don't know his name. Then you see him and you're like, oh yeah, I know him from something.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and for people who may not realize it, we're talking about the guy who voices Dobby in the Harry Potter movies.
Yes,
Like,
yes, that's right.
um,
He's so versatile. He's very
yeah.
talented.
So it was great. Like, he was a great little addition because he adds some fun to it. And then I guess our other new additions as well. Um, we have Justice Smith as Franklin, who his star has, he was in Detective Pikachu, so he's going all about the CGI stuff now.
Hmm.
And but very talented, and I like his character. He's fun. And then we got Daniela Panada, who plays Zia, and yeah, both are interesting choices.
I actually love both of those characters. Like more than I expected. I know that they're a little tropey and a little bit sort of pandering, but I think they're both fantastic.
I think it's great because you still need those people. Like,
Yeah,
Franklin wants to help, but at the same time, he's such like, this is what do you mean dinosaurs? Like is the T-Rex dead? The T-Rex would
yeah,
be
yeah.
dead, right? And then you've
Oh,
got
when he says stuff like, "What am I doing here?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and he has a
it,
real purpose for being there. It's not like the movie like threw him in there for no reason. But the fact that he says stuff like that is so great.
yeah. And then you got Zia, who this is her first time because, and they bring up an interesting point is you know she loves dinosaurs, but she never got to go to Jurassic World because it was out of her price range.
Right.
But she loves dinosaurs, so that was an interesting point to bring in, and I like that they referenced that. That not everybody did end up going to Jurassic World, much like not
Right.
everybody gets to go to Disneyland. And
Yeah.
yeah, she's a good addition. She's a strong character, and um, they had purpose, both of them. Franklin a little bit more comic relief, but Zia was there to, you know, she's the only one that made sense to work on Blue when he gets injured. But
Right. Right.
both of them are returning for Jurassic World Dominion, so that'll
Oh,
be
cool.
interesting to see how they will play into that.
And I also see that on Isabel Sermon's IMDb page, who plays Maisie Lockwood. This is her first ever film, and she will be returning for Dominion as well.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
see if she plays multiple characters.
right, you never know. So just I want to highlight that I thought she was fantastic. Child actors are so hit and miss, and her performance is not like spellbinding, but it's also not at all distracting or detracting, which is actually really hard for child actors to do. Like you could even argue that Tim in Jurassic Park is not quite nailing it. He's great, but he's not quite there. Maisie feels like she's always there. She's always in the moment. She's always and some emotional stuff required from her. So actually, pretty strong cast.
Yeah, no, I think they did a really good job with the cast this year. I would say my least favorite, and I can't even remember his name, but he just plays the cartoon villain who takes the teeth out of the dinosaur.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about him. Yeah, he is not great. What's his name? I'm not even seeing him on the. Is it Ted? Yeah, Ted Levine,
Yeah.
who plays Ken Wheatley. Now, okay, I have a theory about why he's even in the film. And
Okay.
so we're gonna fast forward to the auction.
Yeah.
We've got the Indoraptor, and we're just gonna show. We're not gonna sell the Indoraptor. We're gonna bring it out. We're gonna show you what a killing machine we've created, and then all hell breaks loose because What's the dinosaur with the head buddy thing?
We will just call him Stiggy. That's the nickname for
Diggy?
him, but it's the
Okay.
Stygomaloch.
Hmm.
So we can just call him Stiggy.
All right, so he's loose already. Not a big problem. You can stop that dinosaur fairly easily with a trank or whatever. Um, but I feel like there was the screenwriters in this moment were like, okay, so now we have to get the Indoraptor out of this cage, and we've established that the cage is really strong because we can put it in a room with people, no problem, right? It's gonna. So now we have to get this dinosaur out of the cage. So why would someone open up the cage door? What? Well, maybe they would need something from the dinosaur. They don't want to kill it, but so he goes to take a tooth, which, yes, we have established that he likes to do this, but I feel like that was reverse engineered from this moment. It's like we need someone to open the door, and of course we know that the Indominus Rex is very clever and can trick people into letting you out of the cage. So of course that's what's happening here. But I honestly feel like it's a little bit just for this moment to get, because this is my second time watching it, and I remember the cage coming in, and I was like, how does it get out of there? Like, because if I was a screenwriter in this moment, I'd be like, why would nobody would open the
Yeah.
cage of this crazy deadly dinosaur? So what would do it? Greed would do it. And so, yeah, it feels a little bit unearned, but it
No, but
does
you're
make
right.
the whole third act of the film work.
And I mean, I rewatched it recently, and I've seen it before several times. And again, I was like, wait, how does
How does
the
this happen?
Indoraptor
Yeah.
get out?
It's because we both love this film and we want to ignore the things about it that are like not great. Um,
Exactly. So I do want to mention this. Some fun facts for people, as I always like to do.
yeah.
In the first Jurassic Park book that Michael Crichton wrote forever ago,
Yes.
they do mention there is a volcano on the island.
Really? Because
Yes.
that is one of the biggest problems with this film, and I think a lot of people have this problem, is that why would Hammond build uh, Park number 1? Why would Masrani build Park number 2 on an island with an active volcano? Like, and don't get me wrong, there's some incredible photography, some incredible effects. Like, it is beautiful, the way that, and heartbreaking and terrifying, the way there's the stampede and the volcano,
Yeah.
and like the rain of molten lava. But man, does it feel unearned when it's like, why would they build such a valuable park on an island with an active volcano? That seems silly to me.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's kind of and it would have been better if they had mentioned it in the movies at some point.
Right,
There
right. If
is
oh yeah, if it had been seeded like in Jurassic Park, even like 2 or 3, it would be much better.
Yeah. And of course, okay, the biggest question, and this is why weren't the dinosaurs just moved to Isla Sorna, the
Mm,
second island, as seen in
right.
Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park 3?
The
That's
larger island with the
yeah,
staging area.
we already have this, and it doesn't seem that far away.
Right.
But we wanted them to get to California. I guess, at that point, you kind of just have to go, all right, this is just movie purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, I can deal with some of that. And especially when it is so beautiful and so intense. The first act of the film, with the trying to escape the island is yeah, while the motivation behind it isn't perfect, the execution is spectacular. It's
Yeah,
really a beautiful thing to watch.
it, it's great because we really get to see a lot of dinosaurs in a short time that we don't normally get to see so much, and especially roaming free, and just getting their own little moments. And you like have the dinosaur that is looking to wake up Owen just before the lava comes,
Yeah.
and we finally see our Carnotaurus when we have this whole gyrosphere sequence,
Right.
which why there was one lone gyrosphere there, who knows?
Was convenient, but like I appreciate that it was such a focal point of the previous film that it's nice to see it get repurposed in this film, in a really effective way. Like they use it to such great effect that it's becomes the item that is saving them, but also becomes like this potential casket or tomb underwater later on. It's actually really nicely done.
Yeah, and there's you should YouTube. I know I found it on YouTube at one point, so I don't know if it's still up there, but there's like a whole behind the scenes footage of them filming the whole gyrosphere thing, and sure enough, they had built an actual little roller coaster
Oh, really?
for the gyrosphere, and they recorded Justice Smith and Bryce Dallas Howard in it, and like they said it was like terrifying because they went like as fast as it looked like in the
Oh,
movie.
wow.
And,
Cool.
yeah.
I want to see that.
Um, oh, I wanted to mention the beginning of the movie has a great sequence, and I think it's
Yes.
the best opening sequence.
Yeah, it's so there's something about it that is so frightening. Like it's really yeah, it sort of taps into something. It's also got like sort of a horror movie vibe to it. But it is yeah, like just like we know that the Mosasaurus is got to be in there somewhere, and we're at these underwater doors, and it's like why would that, don't even open those, don't ever open those those doors.
Yeah, there's got to be some other way we can get the skeleton
Right.
from this water,
Yeah.
which just is terrifying. And so you have this whole sequence that you're in there, and it is very like aliens, like space things going on, where you're just like,
Yeah.
"Fuck, it's there somewhere, it's gonna come for us."
Yeah.
And then there's that great shot where you see the shadow of the Mosasaurus, and then
Yes.
like lights go out. And then we move on to the top where it's pouring rain, and the
Yes.
T is just so like the flashes of lightning, and it's getting closer.
Yeah, I mean, give me T-Rex at night with rain, and I'm very happy.
Yeah.
And you're right. The way the there's the helicopter crews trying to get the guy to come come get inside, and he doesn't know what it is. And the way they reveal the T-Rex sort of in the background, just sort of the lightning flash, it's so great. And I assume does this T-Rex have a name? I assume this is
So
T-Rex
this
number
is
one.
Yeah, this is still our number one T-Rex, Rexy, as we like to call her. And so she's still thriving on the island there. And yeah, it's so good. And the whole sequence where you think it's safe, and then the T-Rex grabs the ladder
Yes.
of the helicopter there is just
Yeah.
fantastic. 'Cause
It's
these
so
people
great,
are
and
they're
these
like, "Did
opening
we lose
scenes.
him or what?"
Yeah. And these opening scenes throughout the series are they like this feels like the the best incarnation of like the, okay, we're going to show you, we're going to foreshadow the danger. um this is sort of the best incarnation of it. And it is yeah, it's just super terrifying. But what is the deal? Like, could they not have dropped the sub in on the other side of the doors? I guess they don't really care. They assume it's dead.
They assume it's dead. So, and apparently, so Colin Trevorrow has like come out since, because people are confused about the timeline here. This opening scene only takes place like a month or two after
Oh,
Jurassic
okay.
World.
Okay.
And that's why Henry Wu is able to create this whole Indoraptor from the Indominus
Ah,
Rex
that makes sense
skeleton,
then, because
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 that
that
takes, yeah. So we now are skipping ahead 3 years later, but none of that's shown in the movie.
okay.
We're just making people assume.
Because that bone is very important later on, or it becomes something that everyone's trying to protect.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the not Spinosaurus, the Indominus sort of skeleton being there at the bottom of the lake?
I was not expecting that. So that was kind
Yeah.
of cool to see that. I don't know if that's how it would work, but like,
Right. Yeah.
I really liked and it just added to the creepiness of the scene.
Mm,
Because you're like, okay, well, something has killed something that big and picked it away, and you're
right.
still willing to go in there.
Right.
And there's not enough money in the world that would make me take that job.
Right. Yeah. Um. Okay. So jump me back to the book though, because you say there's a volcano on the island in the book.
Yeah.
why would Hammond build the island? Why?
I mean, my only thought is to add to the prehistoric vibe, right?
Gotcha,
I think
gotcha. Right.
that is the idea of it. And it's been a while since I read the book, but I'm pretty sure like there's some sort of reference to it being that reason is that,
Right.
this is how it was. There was like creepy volcanoes.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Was it like, was it maybe like thought to be inactive though? Like that
Yeah.
I could maybe buy.
So I guess that must be it. And I guess
Okay.
that is why we never really touched on it. It was, a Mount St. Helens situation that,
Right.
okay, we're
Right.
fine. And so, but, like you said, it works in this favor for the movie because it's the best way to end the island is to have something like this, much different than if it was like a hurricane had hit the island. This is
Right.
something really impactful and just creates a beautiful, intense scene, all leading up to it with Owen off the place. And then we also get, when you mentioned terror, and this movie definitely has a lot horror, darker feel to it than any
Yeah.
other movie. Because then
Yeah,
you also
for
have
sure.
this incredible, like, fun sequence of the Baron X, which we've never seen before. But he's the dinosaur who comes through the little sewer.
Right, in that tube thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you. I remember watching it and going, "Oh, what is that dinosaur?"
Yeah, so that's the Baron X, which if you notice it's got like the long, um, what are they called? Snouts? Mouths?
Like snout. Yeah, yeah.
um, there was talks, and that was maybe going to be what was going to be the dinosaur in Jurassic Park 3.
Oh.
Then they realized it still is too similar to the T-Rex, and it's not that
Mm.
impressively big in size, so they
Right.
decided
Right.
to go with the Spinosaurus. But yeah, so you
Right.
have the Baron X, who is just this creepy long dinosaur that managed to crawl through this tube into this building that now lava's pouring in.
Yeah, yeah.
And you definitely have to, in this sequence, you have to remove yourself from reality.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it's fun, and I like it, and the trying to escape is great.
That is one of the things about this film is it feels like there's a moment of like, wow, that was fantastic or brilliant and very clever, and then immediately it's like, that was so cheesy and weird. Why did they make that choice? And yeah, one of those things is that snout not being able to grab what's his name,
Justice Smith's Franklin character.
right.
Okay.
He's just out of reach the whole time, but somehow, like, you just can't climb a ladder that fast, and he's always right there no matter what. And it was that's maybe it was because of all of his um, application of bug spray that just kept him, which was a funny scene. Like
Yeah.
he's very funny in this film. Um, so I liked I liked the tracker piece of it a lot. That all like made a lot of sense. That's why we're bringing these characters here. um I'm like sort of fascinated with the technology of the island. I mean, because we're sort of playing in sort of a sci-fi world here. In a sort of a there's I believe it's called mundane sci-fi. Did we talk about this at some point? Like,
I
there's
don't think they have.
like the idea of, like, say someday in the future the entire NBA is playing all their basketball games in Las Vegas, and they're all quarantined in hotels, like, which sounds like a sci-fi thing,
Yeah.
but only because it couldn't ever happen unless there was a global pandemic, and it actually might happen. Something like that is like sort of a sci-fi thought that might come to pass. So that's one of the cool things about Jurassic Park, other than it's an interactive CD-ROM. We're playing in a world of like accessible technology that is like, oh, we could theoretically have something like this. We could, there's been a lot of advancement in gene and cloning technology. It's funny. There's uh, my friend and collaborator Scott Westby has written a screenplay, and he first wrote it 10 years ago. And in the screenplay, everybody had, instead of smartphones, everybody has what's called a fold. and it's a flexible piece of tech which you can fold up and put in a pocket or whatever. When he wrote that, that didn't exist, but now it is a real thing. Like there's a phone that does that now. It's on the market. Like it's so yeah, that's what's fun about this franchise for me. We were talking about the tech stuff. Like even the idea of a satellite phone, I had never really heard of until Jurassic Park 2.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's the fun stuff about this. So I love the idea that Blue has a tracker, and that we can just find Blue. It's actually quite convenient for the story because they don't have to spend days sort of looking for a raptor that doesn't want to be found. We can find Blue quite quickly.
And you know what? I think that's what one of the things they definitely do well, is that they are definitely like, okay, we're not focusing on the island. The island's going away, so we're only on the island for 20 minutes.
Yeah, totally. That makes me sad. It wasn't until you said it a moment ago that I was like, the island is over. I mean, I hope that's not true. I hope we can go back in some way. But of course, there's other islands, 4 other islands, I guess, that we could still go back to. But yeah, I mean, I don't like spoilers, but does Dominion look like it's taking place on the mainland, sort of?
So what so they only got about like a month into filming,
Right.
and they showed at one point they were in some place very snowy, and then they were also
Oh,
filming
okay.
they were filming in Kelowna for a little bit,
Right.
and I know photos I've seen. We were talking about drive-in movies earlier.
Yes.
There were signs up for drive-in movies, and so I think something's going to happen at a drive-in movie. That's really, I don't know.
That makes me think it's like a flashback of some sort, just because driving movies are so rare until COVID.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's realistic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know entirely. It would be nice if they kind of ended up having some dinosaurs back on an island.
Yeah.
Just because it just makes the most sense. It's the only thing that would work for these creatures to still be in existence.
Hmm. Hmm.
And But we have to talk about we talk about the sad being the islands being over, and there's not a more heartbreaking scene in the entire franchise than that
Yeah.
lone brachiosaurus,
So true.
which they've said, and I'm like, now you're grasping at straws or you're just a complete teabag. They've said that that's supposed to be the same brachiosaurus that Alan and Ellie and Ian see
No.
at the beginning of Jurassic Park.
It doesn't look big enough to me for one thing, but yeah, of course
But
that makes it even more emotional.
it's such a great shot, like
Oh, it's incredible.
it kind of came out of nowhere. Like they get on the boat, you think they're safe, then they decide to look back, and I thought we were just going to see the island, getting covered in ash, and then here was this lone brachiosaurus walking out,
Yeah.
calling out for them, and it just was
It's
so.
haunting. It's
Oh
haunting.
yeah,
Like it's not just sad. It's like the way it's presented in the volcanic ash and the dust and the shadows of the explosions behind it. It's just so brilliantly done, and it speaks to the nature of this franchise in that it's not to take some lines away from previous films. Then there's the running and the yelling and the screaming.
yeah,
It's not just that though. Like there's beauty and sort of surprising wonder and joy when you think of some of the herbivores as
yeah.
opposed to the carnivores. And that's the cool thing about this franchise and the island. If you're, again, last episode we were talking about the difference between our real world and the world that exists, and the fact that the logos are the same. This franchise as a film could give you any of these emotions, but so can your experience as a guest, depending on what part of the island you would want to go to. And so I mean that's one of the most challenging things I think you can do in film, is to try to balance so many different genres, and it works, and people have done it. You look, I mean, I'm a big Buffy fan, and you could look at Buffy as like a horror series, a romance series, a comedy series, a thriller, sci-fi, what's the other one, creatures, sort of. It's everything.
I mean, I will gladly have a whole series talking about Buffy
Is
the
that going to be
Vampire
our next one? All right, let's do it.
because I will say this. I mean, tangent here, but I will say that like The Body and Hush and Once More with Feeling are like three of the best episodes of television ever written.
Certainly. I mean, Hush is like unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
I think it's the only one that got any sort of Emmy attention for them.
Yeah, but
But yeah, let's.
because you add on in all these elements, and Buffy the Vampire series really did that. And the Jurassic World franchise has these moments of
Yes.
of,
Balancing all
of
of these different, like there's some great comedic moments in this, but like once we get to Maisie sort of being hunted by the Indoraptor, it's like that's like straight up horror when it's like opening the window and creeping
yeah,
through and you can hear it breathing. It's like it is pretty impressive, and I think I think maybe people expect a little more comedy from Chris Pratt and from this franchise, because this was a darker one for sure.
yeah, it gets very dark. Chris Pratt is not in neither of these movies. Chris Pratt's not really the comic relief.
No, he's got a few jokes, but nothing crazy.
He's no Star-Lord.
No, certainly not.
Which I think is smart for him as an actor.
Yes.
To have some slight differences in his characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we've got the islands gone by, and we've just got this incredible last shot of the Brachiosaurus, and then I mean, before we get to Lockwood Manor, we've got to talk about, like I mentioned earlier, one of the few animatronics in this movie is the T-Rex. And we've got this very interesting scene, and I love it. But it gets a tad bit much. But you have Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard having to get blood out of the T-Rex.
Right. Which again, I'm okay with. Like, I'm not gonna fault the film for this. In fact, the moment where Blue gets shot and Owen's reaction to that is so great, and that sort of sets up this series of events that it means that Zia has to keep the raptor alive, and that that dude who is angry and steals teeth is like, you're dead if it dies, you're dead, because his bonus is attached to it.
Which is a great way, because you don't want to kill her off. That would have been really bad and awkward.
Right.
It worked, and she had a valid reason for continuing on, whereas the other three are all being secretly hidden on the boat.
For sure. And the fact that Henry Wu needed the blood was a nice touch as well. And it was nice that she's like, no, it's a sock drawer in there now. I've done a blood transfusion. I have a hard time buying that Henry Wu doesn't have some sort of backup of the DNA, whatever. Maybe, I mean, at least in this world, it does seem like you need the bone of that Indo. What was it called?
Indominus.
Indominus Rex. You need that. You need like physical. Even Nedry needed the physical embryo things from. So maybe that's fair. But yeah. So this moment in the trailer, like, what did you think of it?
So it makes sense, and I like it, and the T-Rex's tranquilizer, and so we're having this great moment, and it's fun, and the T-Rex's head's going back and forth because it's sleeping.
And this is Rexy as well, right? Because we see scars on her. Yeah.
So this is Rexy. This is our original T-Rex. Apparently, we've never created any other T-Rexes for this island.
Right.
But so we have it, and so again, I'm a person that I can accept a lot of things in movies, and I'll be down for it. But there's always something that just like throws me off, and in this movie in particular, it is the fact that the T-Rex wakes up, which is fine, and Chris Pratt does a weird somersault, like clearly through the mouth.
Yep.
But the T-Rex claw goes like on the trailer and is roaring super loud, and nobody goes to look at it.
Yeah, nobody cares. And the other thing is, and I didn't notice this on my first watch, it seems like she could just rip right through that trailer. But of course, no time for that, because we're at the island now, or we're back on the mainland now.
Yeah, we don't talk about how far away the island is, but we're now in
Right.
we're now in California.
That's a really
And
good point. It does feel like about 10 minutes have passed, and we're
we've established that these islands are off the coast of Costa Rica.
yes, yes.
And now
So that
we're
would
in
be. I mean,
California.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how fast a ship of this size would travel, but it feels like it would be more than about 25 minutes.
Yeah. So we're there, but they're rushing along. And so at this point, the movie really turns into a super, it's getting dark and it's going to turn creepy. And I, the whole idea now that from this moment on in the movie, everything takes place in a giant mansion is very interesting to me. We went
Mm,
from everything happening on a giant island to everything happening into a giant mansion. Um,
right.
and I'm like, how does you know how is this basement big enough?
Well, yeah. Even they mentioned that. I guess they got to have a big garage for all these dinosaurs.
Yeah,
Um, and so yeah. I mean, there's apparently this whole and sort we're being sort of seeded some exposition as what's his name, bad guy number one is telling bad guy number two about how, here's our plan, here's, have you ever made $100 million on Tuesday, uh and we are getting some information about, okay, here's the lab, and okay, there's a lot of spaces here and there's a lot of work being done, uh which is it's almost too bad that Vincent D'Onofrio's character didn't survive the first film, because he could have played that guy who's out, stealing teeth, whatever, being the sort of the boots on the ground guy, with the intention of, like, we're still going to use these animals for military purposes, which is not as hard to believe as you think. Like, the movie does a pretty good job, I think, of showing and explaining how there's practical applications for these sort of killing machines.
yeah, they do a really good job. And one thing that I read in an interview with Colin Trevorrow is that um, he still wants to make it realistic. So animals are used in military, and people would find reasons for it. But one thing he said he doesn't want to do, as much as there's that fantasy and it would look really cool, is he never wants to have. For him, going too far would be soldiers riding on a T-Rex. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so using the dinosaurs as like with the soldiers on top, he just thinks that would be going too far. And I would
Hmm.
100% agree. As much as people would think that would look so cool, it doesn't work in this universe. But using them to weaponize in different capacity and using them to go kill it makes perfect sense.
For sure.
There's a lot of shady people though that like, it seemed like there's like mafia people, and I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, it totally did. And yeah, yeah. Again, that felt like a bit of a sci-fi element to me. Is like, there's all these shady people who would use these creatures for, I don't know what, some evil purpose of some kind. Um, the the murder of oh man, what's his name? Lockwood? Is that?
Yes, Benjamin
Yeah.
Lockwood.
Um, is pretty intense and well done. I a bit cheesy, but I liked seeing the sort of the Amber Kane sort of smash, and I guess it sort of spoke to the fact that he is who I names I don't know who's the younger bad guy, the
Eli.
Eli. It speaks to Eli's, like, um lack of empathy. He's got like a real serial killer vibe to him, more than just like than this desire for money, this greed. Although he loves watching those numbers go up. um
Well, and that's just it. There is a scene in the auction where we see the big difference between Eli and Henry Wu, because Eli is
yes.
like, "Oh, screw it,
Yeah.
let's sell off the Indoraptor," and
Right.
Wu's very clear that it's not ready to go. The whole
Right.
purpose of bringing Blue is because they want to make more Indoraptors, but they need someone to kind of mother and help teach us the way, because this the Indoraptor is clearly psychotic.
Right.
Um, and one of the things, we talk about how Henry Wu turns out to be a villain, and BD Wong doesn't really feel like he's a villain, but he does say that he's motivated very much so by his love of science and his
Hmm.
ego. And I think that's perfect, and it becomes very clear in this movie. Like, he doesn't just want to make money; he just wants to be like, he wants to see what his science can do, and he wants to
Right.
be the number one guy who does it.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And that comes across, that he is, yeah, like driven. Like it's less about, being evil or greedy, but he is like driven to be the person in the history books who breaks through what is, and already is sort of the biggest, scientific breakthrough, probably in human history. But what's interesting is Eli kills Lockwood, and then like the next scene, he's like sort of being pithy in front of Owen and Claire, who are trapped in prison, and it's like, I don't know if they knew. And this is something that happens to me. Certainly happened to me when I was shooting my feature film. Was you're not always necessarily aware of the order of the scenes, because of course you shoot out of order.
Yeah,
And so sometimes you're shooting a scene and you're like, oh, the scene before this was, what was this? And either you may know or you may not know. So you may know, and then in editing, the scenes may shuffle, or you may not be remembering that the scene prior to this one. So that felt weird to me, that he's like just murdered him, and now I'm going to be. But it actually spoke to the fact that he is like kind of a crazy person, and that serial killer vibe. Um,
he definitely has a serial killer vibe,
yeah, yeah,
and it is very interesting to see that he doesn't just like throw them in with the T-Rex or the Indoraptor.
right.
Allows them, and it's great. Like, I love when she like smashes his face into the bar, and you get to see the badass of
Yeah,
Claire.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Um, and then Eli's back upstairs to like discover the body. He's all over that house, which,
yeah,
that's fine. There's nothing too crazy
it's
about
a
that.
very big mansion, but he knows
Yeah,
the
yeah.
shortcut because there's
But
clearly shortcuts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, well, there's that dumbwaiter, which is used to great effect by Maisie. For some reason, they've got like top security to get down to those those lower levels, but that dumbwaiter still works out.
and and can we reference? I don't know who got this the first go round, but I definitely noticed it when she's trying to close it. It's totally a throwback to the Raptors in the kitchen in Jurassic Park.
Yes,
Like,
yes, and it feels that way.
and
It's
it
really good.
just made me so happy when I saw it.
Totally. Um, Quick mention for Geraldine Chaplin, who plays Iris, uh, sort of nanny, who nannied both Maisie and her mother, but her clone. Um, she's fantastic in this film, and is like seen very briefly, and has like, some really great lines, and is like really pulls at your heartstrings when he's like, well, I guess now that he's dead, you're moving on. And she's like, no, but I'm still taking care of Maisie. And he's like, nah, it's all good, you got to go. She's And then she's gone. It's
And unfortunately, there's a deleted scene.
I was just thinking there must be.
There is a deleted scene, and I don't know if it's unfortunate or not.
Mm,
We've never seen it. I don't know how much of it was shot, but there is a
okay.
behind-the-scenes photo of Iris at the bottom of the stairs holding a stick, and they have the animatronic of the Indoraptor's head
Oh,
coming
okay.
towards her. So that's
Huh.
how Maisie gets a little bit further away from the Indoraptor as she's going up the stairs. But we cut it,
Oh.
unfortunately, is that
Hmm.
Iris is still there to protect Maisie. She didn't leave, and I'm
Right.
assuming Iris, being an old lady, and this being the
Probably
Indoraptor,
kicked the bucket, which was maybe too sad,
I
a
guess
moment.
I feel like that's the proper
Yeah.
thing that they went with, because everybody else in this movie who dies are bad people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Um, the one upside of the Ken Wheatley character, who wants his necklace of dinosaur teeth, his death is fantastic. Like it's very satisfying that it's sort of drawn out. He loses his arm. It's one of the most graphic deaths, I think, in the franchise, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
because you actually see like the arm in the Indoraptor's mouth.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
don't normally linger on that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and not very bloody though,
yeah,
which
did you
fair enough.
enjoy the whole to really showcase how twisted this Indoraptor is? The like the eyes opening and smiling and then closing again and then the
Yeah,
tail. Yeah.
it was a little much for me. Like I can buy that it's a super smart animal. Um, but how much is it going to play with its food? I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was sort of goofy and fun, but I don't know. I could probably have done without. Um, Speaking of sort of weird, sort of goofy things, what do you think of the jailbreak scene where they use what was it? What did you
Oh, our good friend Stiggy.
Sticky? Yeah,
Yeah, it's it was an interesting choice. I like that we showcased a dinosaur that
yeah.
we haven't really done before.
I agree. I agree.
And I believe is a herbivore. But
Okay,
yeah, it was nice, and it made more sense than it being like a triceratop or something.
right.
But yeah, it's a little hokey. Like I don't know if this dinosaur would get that annoyed by whistling.
Right, and I don't think he's getting through that brick wall necessarily. But anyway, it was good. It was kind of like oh hey we've got our we've got our cellmate over in the next cell here, and he's gonna get us out.
Yeah, and then we got to it made the most sense um, to kind of keep it. I feel like contained the best way to say it, but the whole breaking up of the auction
Yes,
without having it be blue or the Baronex or even the T-Rex get out and start destroying everything. And you just
right.
have this tiny little dinosaur just having some fun. So I think that worked. Kind of kooky breakout, but
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so then Owen and Claire. You know what? One thing that I thought was interesting is like Maisie is going through like this horrible discovery of her grandfather being dead, um, and and so there's a disconnect because those characters haven't met each other yet. So meanwhile, Claire is talking about. She actually has this beautiful line about. Do you remember the first time you saw a dinosaur? Which sort of, again, for in the real world, we're thinking, yeah, I remember Jurassic Park. That was crazy.
yeah,
Uh, but but it's sort of like a beautiful indicator of like of at least how she feels about dinosaurs now and why she maybe took the turn that she did. And then when they do finally meet up, and Maisie's got sort of tears in her eyes, she had previously seen video of Owen training Blue,
yeah,
so there is a nice like connection where she's like, "I know you," like, and she goes to hug him and not her. You think she might go for like sort of the maternal instinct, but it made a lot of sense to me that it was like, okay, he's at least someone who seems nice and is treating this animal nicely and is vulnerable in that video, and she needs a hug, and she goes to him, and it was, I don't know, it's weird that it's this late in the movie that sort of these two sets of protagonists and different storylines are only meeting up now. But it made a lot of sense to me.
yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I always find it interesting in movies when this does happen, um, where it takes so long, and these characters then, but they're in such a crazy situation where you're just like forced to bond.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, and it's that instant family feeling that we had in Jurassic Park, right? Like Grant is a dad, like now they're a little family all of a sudden, and that is it's amazing how much will like we, maybe not everybody, but I will like buy into that. Like when they're running through sort of the museum area and hiding, like I am rooting for them as a team. It feels like they've
yeah,
known each other forever all of a sudden, and I want them all to make it.
yeah, it's true. Now that you mention it, I didn't think twice when we got to the little museum room and they're trying to like hide through. I wasn't thinking that like, oh, you just met. Like I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they're a team and they're gonna survive together. And again, a great another sequence where they turn off the lights and they're trying to get away from the Indoraptor, and you just don't. You see shadows, you see the quick movement across the camera, and then it turns out to be like above the dinosaur skeleton. Like,
Yeah, that's right. Which is also sort of like a little setting up the payoff to how the Indoraptor eventually dies. Um, one thing that I can't, I don't understand when it comes to this little family that we've created is Eli runs into them in the hallway with his like henchmen,
yeah.
and he's like, "Yo, don't be friends with her. She's a clone." Why does he drop this piece of information in this weird way? I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense, especially because Owen and Claire have already set up that they're, pro clone dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I, I don't know how they would feel differently. So it was a weird moment.
Yeah.
I felt like there could have been a better way for um, other characters to discover in the movie.
Right.
The audience, unless you're slow like me, realize that she's a clone. But of course, you need to make sure that other characters, by the time the movie ends, knows that she's a clone, and she can't just be like, "What up? I'm a clone."
Right. It did feel like, because we know, I mean, I think we know, I think it's pretty clear that we know that Iris knows that she's a clone because she's raised both of these children. This would have maybe been an opportunity for her to be the one to sort of intimate this piece of information to Claire and Owen. And to be honest with you, maybe they don't even need to know. We could have maybe deleted this scene, and they get interrupted by, I think, the Indoraptor like taking out the guards, and they get split up away from Eli, which is great. But yeah, I mean, maybe we could have done without it entirely. The only thing that that is sort of important is when we're right at sort of this film ends a few times. I'm going to say the end of the film, but it feels like we get a few different endings. One of the endings being where we let all the dinosaurs out because they're being gassed due to an explosion that happens over in another storyline. And Maisie lets them all out and she sort of says they're like me.
Yeah.
We're all, they're, we get this vibe that it's more than just like, oh, they're living things. She's like, no, I'm a clone. They're clones. Like, these are the only other clones in the world as far as I know. So she seems to care, and that makes sense to me. And maybe that could have been their reveal or their understanding of it. But that was just a very like twisting my mustache. No, she's a clone. Didn't you realize? Anyway.
Yeah, no, and you know what? That whole scene is great because there was actually a part of me, and I knew that there was going to be another movie, and I knew they weren't going to end it like this. But there was still a part of me, and I love dinosaurs, and I love these creatures. But I was trying to put myself, and I still, every now and then I like to think about it, putting myself into Claire's shoes, because it's very much becomes Claire's moment, and it's Pandora's box. We've got an actual Pandora's box. And Owen says, like, if you press that button, like, here we go. There's no going back from it. And I don't want to lose these creatures. Like, I find their lives are very important, but to just let them roam, go into the forests in California, I don't know. It just, there was part of me that was like, how is this going to end? And, she steps away, but then it's Maisie and it makes sense. She's the only person who should push the button.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And it was sort of, it would have been weird if Claire had done it, because, that's totally a great, so another important screenwriting and storytelling thing is choice under pressure. So when we force characters to make a choice, and a real choice with stakes and pressure, it tells us who they are, right? So if she had done it, it would have told us that she's a little more reckless, and it would have sort of betrayed, especially the Jurassic World version of her that we know to be very organized and very professional and very focused on guest safety to a degree. So you would think, okay, if we let these animals out. They're probably going to kill some human beings, and we're trying to limit that. So yeah, it was the perfect thing to let Maisie be the one to do it. And so I'm very curious about what the repercussions are going to be in the next film, because I don't know, like maybe but like they could just be, it could just be a throwaway thing where it's like, yeah, we rounded them up, no big deal, or that could be the whole film is like dealing with these many animals that are loose. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we have this wonderful short that was released last year, Battle of Big Rock.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm sorry, you sent me the link. I'm a jerk. Tell me about it.
So
Spoil it for us.
So we got Battle of Big Rock. So first of all, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom is the first Jurassic movie to have a post-credit scene, which we see the pterodactyls or the pterodons arriving in Vegas.
Right.
We do before the credits roll. We see the T-Rex go to the lion's cage and they roar at each other. And then you've got Blue circling over those houses. But Battle of Big Rock takes place a year after the events of this movie.
Oh, okay.
And it is this 8-minute short film that was top secret recorded, written and directed by Colin Trevorrow, also written by Emily Carmichael, who's working on Jurassic World Dominion with Trevorrow.
Cool.
Basically, Universal Studios said, hey, would you be interested in doing a short film that happens after Fallen Kingdom? And he didn't even think twice and contacted Emily. They wrote the script. And they hired 2 actors. Well, they hired a whole family, but the 2 lead actors is Andre Holland, who people will know from Selma, and Emily or Natalie Martinez, who's been in a bunch of great things. So he called them up personally and was like, will you guys do this? So they went to Ireland. They filmed this in 5 days in this little forest scene, and it takes place a year afterwards, as I mentioned. And we see this family. They're the mom and dad, and they have their 3 kids, and they're camping in the forest. And there's been reports of dinosaurs loose.
I was gonna say, if it's a year later, don't we know that there's?
We haven't really seen too much of anything, I guess, at this point. It starts off as the titles coming in. There's news reports, voice over clips, and then sure enough, as they're all sitting around dinner in their camper late at night, Naza Triceratops, which is basically kind of like a Triceratops but with less horns, wanders into the camp.
Is it the one with the really fancy
Yeah, it's real nice. It's real.
It's it's like a crown.
Yeah, so we've got 5 or 6 trailers around this campsite here, and he wanders in, and then a baby wanders in, and then all of a sudden there's the loud roar, and an Allosaurus wanders in.
Allosaurus.
And it's this big old scary mean carnivore, and they start fighting with each other. And then eventually the dad comes in of the herbivores, and so they back away, and the Allosaurus lets it happen. But unfortunately, one of the small children is a baby and starts crying. And the Allosaurus goes and realizes that there's a noise, and it goes after it. And it's this great sequence. And again, this movie's only 8 minutes long. It's available on YouTube,
yeah.
The official one.
I'm going to watch it right now.
And then during the credits, they show home videos from various people of dinosaurs in the real world. You see
sweet
fishermen going along, and there's a dinosaur drinking out of the water. There's a dash cam of somebody coming out of a tunnel, and the Stegosaurus is on the road, and pterodons attacking doves at a wedding. It's so great.
Nice.
And it's just such a great short film with a whole Hollywood budget behind it. But it really, first of all, very diverse cast, which is great. But it shows a family. The little girl in this family knows dinosaurs, so she's telling her family what these dinosaurs are. So even if you don't know what they are, but it's just really good. And what I'm hoping for the future of the franchise is not necessarily dinosaur experts, as much as I love Alan and Ellie and Ian, and I can't wait to see them again. It's seeing real people like us interact with these dinosaurs.
Yes. Yeah. It is. It's an interesting that world. When you come to the mainland, you're breaking that wall even further. Um, and yeah, I'm excited to watch that. That sounds very cool. Um, I'm always surprised when like Universal or anybody will put like a big budget into a short film that just plays online and isn't going to generate any revenue particularly. So that's cool to see. I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah,
You reminded me of last time we were talking about the transmedia campaign and those shots, those
the
security
camera.
camera,
Yeah,
security camera shots. Those get used at the beginning of this film, we're seeing the destruction, the terror, the those camera shots that are being used by news in the movie are the same pieces of footage that were being used on the website. So again, like that, they would have spent a lot of money to do this like low res like security camera footage. But the other thing that you reminded me of is if dinosaurs are loose in California, speaking again about that idea of mundane science fiction, where like this would sort of create, I think, a world where you're sort of trapped in your home. You can't leave except maybe just to go to the grocery store or something, like something that could never happen, something that would only happen if maybe, I don't know, there was a global pandemic of some kind. And here we are. So you never know, dinosaurs may come to pass. If COVID-19 can change the entire world, I don't see why why
well,
dinosaurs can't.
and I mean, and yeah, like, oh, I mean, if somebody told me, and I, as growing up, watching these films, I remember having these nightmares or fears, like when it'd be like late at night, and I would be coming up the stairs from the basement, and nobody had closed the blinds on our patio door, and I would all of a sudden have this fear, like, oh my god, what if all of a sudden a dinosaur just like walked past it? So I always have those thoughts about dinosaurs in the real world, and T-Rex and a raptor on the loose, crazy, terrifying. I don't know what I would do, and that is one where again, they're living creatures, so I don't know how there's all that discussion about their rights and do we just kill them because they will eat people. But if all of a sudden a stegosaurus started walking past down my street, like, it's not going to bother anybody unless it feels harm.
Right. It's true. Could we coexist with dinosaurs, Craig?
I if Alan Grant said it, and that's kind of the basis Colin Trevorrow said for this kind of movie in particular. This movie in particular, he says it in that first movie. Men and dinosaurs separated by 65 million years, and now are suddenly thrust together, and that's the whole idea. And can they coexist? And I don't think we can. I think there's too much fear, and the biggest problem is, so many of them are so big. Um, we're not made for this,
And so many of them are so hungry for human flesh is the other problem, it seems.
Yeah. Do we just save the herbivores?
Yeah, exactly. That might work. That actually might work.
Yeah.
So every movie we seem to have like an epic moment where the big bad dinosaur dies, is killed. I mean, the Mosasaurus. I don't know that you can top that, and I wouldn't say that this film does, but when Blue and we're back to, it's nighttime. There's rain. When Blue is taking out the Indoraptor and it's slow motion, glass falling, and we're sort of twirling down, and we saw that what was it's like a Triceratops, but with
yeah, the Triceratops type skull, the something top.
yeah. It's got that seems to be what they land on, like
Yeah.
a skeleton of one of those with that bill thing. And that's what ends up killing the Indoraptor, and it lands right on those two spiky ends, and Blue is like, cool, I win, and I move on with my life. I mean, It's kind of cool that Blue is a character more than any dinosaur has ever been in this franchise. I mean, you could argue that we have Rexy, who doesn't ever go away, but Blue is like communicating, has a relationship with Owen, and continues to live on through this film. I'm sure we'll make it into Dominion in some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah. Well, like my 4-year-old nephew loves dinosaurs. Obviously, as I mentioned, I haven't been able to show him the movies. My sister did tell me they tried to watch Jurassic World the other day and got to the point where the larger security guy at the Indominus Rex site, just as he got eaten, she was like, "Nope, that's enough. Okay,
That's
nope,
enough of
can't do this."
that.
But he, my 4-year-old nephew Everett, like knows Blue, and
Right.
for his birthday he was asking for Blue, like, and
It's
he
kind of
knew it.
crazy that they haven't done this already. Like that seems like kind of a given that like Star Wars has done it. Like you identify some sort of. I mean, I'm sure it has worked out very well in the merchandising side of Universal's income line item. Anything else we've missed about this movie? I mean,
Well, I just want, like, here we go. You mentioned it earlier, like this movie has multiple endings.
yes,
If
yeah,
here was an ending that any other film, like that Indoraptor landing on there and that kind of fade out, and maybe saying that goodbye to Blue would have been the ending. But then we
right.
went to Pandora's box scene,
Hmm.
and
And
then
then we
we
got to
had
kill Eli.
and then we had the wonderful Eli scene where the
Yeah.
stampede happens out, which is great, and like he just thinks he's safe, and then the like car gets smushed and then moves aside, and then all of a sudden the Carnotaurus, and he doesn't get a great death either, because, well, he has a great death but not great for him, because it's the
Right.
Carnotaurus and the T-Rex fighting over his carcass.
Yes, one of those two dinosaurs killing or sharing a meal.
Yeah.
Carnosaurus, is that what the other one is?
Carnotaurus.
Carnotaurus.
Carnotaurus, yeah. And then so we have that ending, and then we have the Ian Malcolm voiceover again, and talking about everything that's happening, and then we have all the shots of all the dinosaurs roaming around. But and then that's the gist of the movie. I think it's one of the lower rated of the 5,
Right.
but
I just think it's jarring. I think the most jarring thing about it is, and one of the other films does this as well, and that would be The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Like, I just don't think we like the story when we leave the island, right? Or we can, but like in Jurassic Park, it's like we're not on the island, we're on the island, and then we're sort of leaving the island. And it goes back to that Joseph Campbell Hero with a Thousand Faces, the hero's journey, which very much, and it just seems to be what works for our brains, the kind of story we like. The idea of like we're in the original world, we're Bilbo Baggins in the Shire, and then we're like in the scary world, and then we go back to the Shire. It's just what we like, and this movie sort of reconfigures that, and I think that's off-putting for people. But honestly, on my second viewing, knowing that it was coming was less of a surprise, and I was much more cool with it. I think it's just a bit weird when you assume this is going to be on the island for the most part, and then it's not at all.
yeah, and an interesting choice that when they did take it off the island, it takes place in like this very secluded mansion, which is a whole interesting point.
Right? Yeah, totally. Rather than sort of in the middle of a much more populated area.
And I guess we've talked about this before. The stakes almost seem that much higher in films like these ones, like Jurassic Park. Is when we first mentioned it, is when there's very few people and it's all on this island, and there's like 7 people on this island, but the stakes seem that much higher. Whereas now you have all these superhero films and disaster movies where, I mean, it takes away from it because every building's being knocked down, and
Yeah.
how many thousands of people have died in these movies, but we don't ever really touch on that. So
Yeah.
that is my biggest fear coming into Jurassic World Dominion, is that it's going to be too much of a big budget disaster, blow up a city.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I mean, there's certainly films that are coming, after the sort of the MCU, showing us that low what we sort of might describe as low stakes can still be very high stakes. I mean, if we care about the characters and their lives are in peril, that's sort of all we need. There's definitely it's, I mean, when the whole world is at stake, that's high stakes, but there's sort of nowhere to go from there. And yeah, you're right, it can get into sort of some murky territory. One thing I just spotted here is that I don't know how to say his name, but it's Michael Giacchino did the music, and he did Lost, the music for
Yeah.
Lost, and he's fantastic, and I think the music in this is quite strong. Did he do the previous film too?
Yes, I believe he did the previous one. John Williams did not return for the Jurassic
No,
World series, but
but of course
yeah,
they're still using some of his his tones,
yeah,
as well they should.
yeah. It's interesting with the franchise. With these ones, like you have the set ones, and like with the MCU, you know, Iron Man has his little anthem, and Captain America has his, and Thor have
Hmm.
his.
Hmm.
So then when you have like Avengers movies or like crossover movies, then you have to like still incorporate them, so you don't have it. It's weird when you get into it that way, but
Yeah.
I definitely like it. So let me
One
ask
more.
you. I was gonna ask
Well,
you. Oh,
okay.
you go.
I was just gonna quickly say, because we didn't really talk about VFX much in this podcast, and I think that's to its credit, right? Like there wasn't anything in this one that was particularly like, ew, that looks bad to me. So maybe it's improving.
I would say it's improving, and I think
Yeah.
what helps it is the darkness.
Yes. Yeah. But there's a lot that's in the daylight, right? Especially on the island, and
Yeah.
there's nothing that's like, I mean, there's nothing that like blows me away and feels like it's, oh, that's really there. But there was also nothing that was like really really egregious. So
Yeah.
so anyway, yeah, it's maybe they're finding their footing a bit more, or maybe the technology is just getting better and better, and hopefully that's both is the case.
Well, and I think I feel like going into Fallen Kingdom, after at this point, I think Jurassic World was, because we mentioned Jurassic World is currently the sixth highest grossing film of all time. And I think at that
Hmm.
point it was like the third highest grossing film.
Oh wow.
Especially when they like greenlit this, because it was behind Avatar, then Titanic, and then it was Jurassic World.
Right.
Um,
And Endgame
so
hadn't come out yet.
yeah, and so I think it was kind of like, all right, we can give you a bit more money. This is
Right.
clearly
Right,
what's
right.
going to happen.
Oh yeah, okay, interesting. And you think that led to better VFX?
Yeah, and yeah, because it does work. Like the whole gyrosphere scene with the dinosaurs all around, like it definitely looks great. Like
Hmm.
nothing
Hmm.
too ridiculous.
There's a long take. We didn't talk about this, but there's like a long shot where we're sort of inside that what's it called, the gyro,
The gyrosphere.
yeah, the gyrosphere, and it's brilliantly well done. Like we're underwater, and we're yeah, I mean, the reason to do one of the reasons to do a long take where you don't cut at all is to give the audience the feeling that they're there. I mean, every time you cut, you're sort of subconsciously telling the audience this isn't real. So when you don't cut and you're just whipping back and forth and you're in there with them, it creates, I think, the sense of claustrophobia that they needed, and it was so well crafted, where Owen sort of just swims into the picture between them, and then he's got the gun, and yeah, I just wanted to highlight that as well. But what you said, you wanted to ask me something.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. We're starting to wrap up here. We've talked about 5 movies. All have their little differences. Um, but do you have a placement of them all?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that, but I think, having rewatched them all, um,
And this
I
is
don't.
probably one of the first times you've watched all 5 of them this close together.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. Yeah. I've never watched them back to back to back like this, and yeah. I mean, I don't think Jurassic Park can be unseated, certainly. But I'm sort of a I like a modern film. I like a and so I think maybe Jurassic World is next and Fallen Kingdom is after that, and then it would probably be Jurassic Park 3 and then Jurassic Park 2. The Lost World Jurassic Park would be my last, I think. How about you?
After rewatching them and talking about them, and I used to say it was Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, Lost World, uh, Jurassic World 3, and Fallen Kingdom. But I think rewatching them and talking about them, it's definitely still Jurassic Park. Then I would say Jurassic World, and then I would say Jurassic Park 3.
Oh, really? All
Um,
right.
and then I would do and I would go back and forth between Fallen Kingdom and Lost World. There's things I like
Mm,
about both of them, and there's things that
mhm.
annoy me about both of them.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I would say that, and then
Did you say that your order changed having done this series of podcasts?
yeah, I realized
Wow.
Jurassic Park 3 is higher up than I give
Huh.
it credit.
Yeah, I mean it has a lot of redeeming qualities. It sort of gets forgotten, I think, but yeah, I mean it. Like I said, there's a moment there where it gets on the rails and actually becomes a really good film. Unfortunately, it's about halfway through.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, Jurassic Park 3 is a way to set up future movies to create this whole universe and have different styles to it. Much like Fallen Kingdom has this very dark, so we can have these movies that are a bit more comedic, like Jurassic Park 3 has the kookiness, the dinosaur smelling the poop on the humans and
Yeah,
decided not worth it, to
yeah,
having something Fallen Kingdom where there is this small dinosaur chasing this little girl around in this dark mansion.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We didn't talk much about the fact that there's yeah, there's a lot of creepiness. She runs to her bed, and to have the, yeah, I guess I did mention it, but then there's actually quite a battle moment scene between Blue and the Indoraptor, um, while they're trying to escape. And I love the way it's shot, and I love the way it's blocked as well. Blocking being, for those who may not know, the way actors move on camera, on stage, and the same, I would consider the dinosaurs, even though they're a VFX element, as part of that blocking, because there's the moments where it's like, okay, we're gonna escape while they're fighting, and then we're going to work really hard to get around and climb on the ledge and like get under the window and then climb down, and it's like in an instant all of that work is undone by them jumping through the window, and now they're right back on top of them. And it's like it's such a good, like, oh, plus and minuses, like there's a lot of that in this film, done really well. And that's where tone comes from, like where is something like exciting and happy, or negative moment, oh, we're making progress, we're not. And I think Fallen Kingdom actually balances that really well. It's just there are these moments of cheese that, I honestly feel like you could edit this movie without shooting another frame and improve upon it. But that's
And
just,
this is the longest of our movies.
oh, is it? I
Yeah,
thought, oh, okay.
yeah. There's something about it, and I'm sure there's stuff you could have cut, and I feel like it's just little lines here and there,
Yeah,
little moments, but and then because they already cut a bunch of stuff too. There was a bunch of stuff that they didn't get to
sounds like it. Yeah,
like yeah. So I don't know. So here we go. We've got 5 of them done. We've got a short film,
we
and
did it.
Jurassic World Dominion number 6 coming out. Well, scheduled